Hello, Mr. Blue Jay. Good morning. Thank you for visiting. Tweedledee indeed. Farewell, Mr. Blue Jay. I have business to be about. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. With all the stress in the world lately, I've decided to leave everything behind and spend some time alone in nature. There's just a lot going on, okay? So today we're going to go live the simple life. We're going to spend a year in the backwoods on a sabbatical, isolating ourselves and becoming one with nature. I also want to see just how much money the backwoods can produce, and the only time an NPC ever sets foot there is for Abigail's 14 heart scene, so we don't have to worry about anyone intruding on our secret hideout. All runs start with being frustrated by Pierre though, so that's where we are starting as well. We're going to need a tent if we want to go camping, and fortunately I have a mod that'll do just that for us. It costs 5,000 G, so I gave myself some money to pick it up, but after that, it's going to be all about that solo life. On my first day in the backwoods, I acclimated myself to my new home. Fortunately, there were 3 trees available back here, and that would give me enough wood for a chest to store all of my earthly belongings. I wouldn't be making any trips out of the backwoods to sell anything, to buy any resources, to talk with the townsfolk, or anything like that. So it was important that we become very comfortable with the isolation here. If you've watched literally any of my streams, you know that I have no problem with doing the same exact thing a million times, and that does become a theme in this run as well. I ended up building my chest on the first day, loading everything into it, and then we started digging for clay. I'm not using a predictor, I just wanted to see, if we dug up every spot on the entire map every single day, how much money could we get out of clay, artifacts, forage, wood, and anything else that we could get on this map. There's something very peaceful about settling into a new task, a new opportunity with single-minded determination. I was enthusiastic about my time here, though I knew it might grow a little lonely. I thought that it would be a good opportunity to get away from the hustle and bustle of the busy Pelican Town life with all 30 people scrambling about in the mad rat race. And I was equally excited to determine what kind of income we could earn here in the backwoods, a map that I find severely underutilized. Realistically, I only come through here on my way north to the Carpenter, or at the early game, I'll swing down this way after a day in the mines before I have the minecarts ready. It was my belief before I started this video that I would end up earning most of my money from clay, though we'll find a little bit of a deviation from that towards the end of this video. I set off to go to bed, actually. That was all that I had to do today. We had tilled every single tile, though I did notice some that I missed. There are some tiles you might not expect to be tillable that I would find later in my run. And it was time for us to rest up, prepare for another day. We would spend most of our time sleeping, in fact. I believe I was normally in bed by 8 a.m. at the absolute latest. In any case, it was time to settle into a new rhythm. For the first full 2 weeks of this run, I did nothing but till the earth every single day, growing ever stronger and more dedicated in my work, in my passion. I would occasionally find forage on the ground, but the majority of my time was spent tilling the land. The trees had already been cut down, and because I had not reached foraging level 1... Oh, what's this? What splendid timing! Because you see, I had finally achieved foraging level 1 midway through my first spring, and while that's not... No, that's actually a pretty terrible time. That's actually pretty bad. But now, with my own self-sustaining source of wood, I thought it was finally time to begin my isolation in full. I placed some fences not to claim this land as my own, for I was only a passenger here, but to separate myself well and truly from the rest of the valley, begin my isolation, and to turn my thoughts inward. And truly, the rest of the season was spent in much the same fashion. I would rise with the chirping of the blue jay, shower in the gentle spring rains, fill the land ever searching for clay to ultimately sell because I'm gonna need money at the end of this, and then rest and recover my body for another day's labor. It was a simple life, but out here alone in the furthest corner of this unreachable area of the map, I was growing more comfortable in my own skin, which was good, because I literally hadn't seen another NPC in 3-4 weeks, the rest of the month. Oh my gosh. Now, you might think that things would start to pick up their pace in the summer. After all, summer is when Stardew Valley, to me at least, seems to almost come alive. even though The Valley Comes Alive is a spring song. But regardless, summer tends to be when I start to pick up the pace a little bit, make more money. There's a bit of a frenzy as you're continuing to snowball and grow your empire, and the blueberries are everywhere, and the blueberry noise is maybe one of my favorite parts of summer. But we're living a more idyllic lifestyle here in the mountains. These backwoods, well, we're not growing any blueberries here. I didn't get a mod for that, though I thought about it. And so instead, we continued our single-minded advance toward a clay empire. I have to admit that for most of the summer, my main focus was just checking on my trees every day to see if they were growing. I had finally gained the ability to get seeds into the ground, and yet there was nothing I could do to advance their growth. It truly did serve as a reminder to me that while time waits for no man, it also simply plods on at its own pace. And while some may say that time flies when you're having fun, time did not appear to be flying in this run. But I think that's enough of summer for this video. The summer music is too sprightly, free, and fun. Instead, let me leave you with this quote from Jack Cornfield before we advance into autumn's bounty. Much of spiritual life is self-acceptance, maybe all of it, he once said. And here, in the backwoods, with no one else around, we've learned to accept our lot in life. I find that quite profound. Suffice it to say that summer was pretty boring. Nothing really happened. I didn't even reach foraging level 2. All I did every morning was wander around, dig up the dirt, hope that my trees were growing, which they didn't, and then go back to bed. Fall, though. Fall is where the game will truly begin. As the sole resident of this little plot of land for already 2 months, I decided that perhaps it was within my rights to make some small improvements upon the land. Certainly, we would take these things with us when we left, but every ounce of comfort that we could extract for the next 2 months would make this challenge all the easier for me, mentally, because it's a lot of tilling. So I decided to set up a small camp to kind of push back the wilderness around my tent to protect myself in the evening from the wild blue jays. On the second day of fall, even the trees had heard my plea, and the one directly in front of my camp grew strong and tall and ready for me to cut it down so I could turn it into pathing to make my life a little bit more convenient and comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Tree. But there was one problem. My chest had been left all alone across the map, and while fortunately I could just push it without having any tools in my equipment, it took a really long time and was very inconvenient. And it also reminded me of when you're playing Pokemon and there's like a strength puzzle, and they're meant for like 9-year-olds, right? But I always have to look them up. I also decided that my friend the tree should live on forever in front of my home as a series of paths so that I may never forget his sacrifice. I was rewarded for my stewardship merely a week later. Hello, Mr. Blue Jay. Good morning. Thank you for visiting. Tweedledee indeed. Farewell, Mr. Blue Jay. I have business to be about. I'm sure you do too. In fact, I didn't really have business to be about. I merely didn't wish to burden Mr. Blue Jay with my own concerns. For you see, temptation was upon me. The fencing that I had been using to isolate myself from the rest of the valley had worn thin. Time had taken its toll on the wooden posts. And surely it couldn't hurt to take one peek outside, but no, this was not punishment. And for my diligence and honesty, I was finally rewarded with foraging level 2. It was late into fall, and surely this wouldn't really do anything at all because trees aren't going to grow, and I don't really use up all my energy anyway, but it was finally here. And something else had joined us for winter. Finally, my beard had regrown. And while I would never have enough stone or fiber to make a campfire, surely an extra layer of body hair would be enough to keep me through this cold, cold winter. And though I could never say with 100% certainty why the beard had grown on my face, I had my suspicions that it was because I had traveled to the wizard and paid 500 gold to have it applied. But that was neither here nor there, because there are some very important things we need to talk about in winter. For one, I don't know if I mentioned this, in fact I'm certain that I didn't, but I have not found a single artifact spot to date. And now that it was winter, they were starting to show the little wormies or sticks or whatever you believe them to be. It doesn't really matter. Point is, I could have gotten a skeletal hand, I believe was the only thing I looked up. Pretty sure it was a skeletal hand. And I had not. I don't know if that was an issue with sleeping in a tent out here or just exactly what that was, but I was really excited to see big spots in the ground, and it was kind of disappointing because all I ever got was more winter roots and snow yams and stuff. But yeah. On the other hand, the winter roots and snow yams did come in abundance, and while I had vastly underestimated how many of them I would find, I was quickly suspecting that come payday, winter yams, snow roots, winter roots, snow yams, there we go, that other one, those would be my real moneymakers. But winter was also a time of quiet introspection, the examination of my own mental and emotional state. Did I keep putting the fences up because I wanted to keep the wilderness out? Or because I was afraid and wanted to keep myself locked away? Were the torches meant to light the night and keep me safe? Or would my fire-blind eyes be unable to see into the darkness and understand that without? Truly, it was a deep, deep time to think about deep, deep stuff, I guess. But winter's icy grip couldn't hold forever, and by the end of the month I had begun to realize that my place was among my fellow man, that my sabbatical had served its purpose. I endeavored to sell all of my crap. It took, I think, 3 trips, I actually don't remember. But I dumped everything into the bins to see what my time in the mountains had done for me. Had it been a prosperous time? No, not at all. But had it been a time for introspection? A little bit, but I kind of got tired of it about halfway through. I knew, though, that if there was any one last thing I should do for these woods that had held me for the year, it was to remove all traces of my inhabitants, and so I tore up the stakes. Actually, let's check this out. Oh my gosh. So winter roots, 70 of them for 43.80. 100 gold each, snow yam 6,000 gold. Like, that's pretty outrageous. And then this is what I thought would be worth the most, the clay. We got 31.60 out of the clay, but goodness gracious, almost $18,000 in the backwoods over the course of a year. That was far greater than I had imagined. Fortunately, I knew of the exact place I wanted to spend my nearly 18,000 gold. I had spent so much time alone, isolated from the rest of the world, stuck in the backwoods with nothing to do, no one to see. All I wanted to do was to improve the lots of those around me. With a beaming grin, I stepped out of Joja Mart, my membership in hand, and set forth toward my new home, a place near the soon-to-be Joja warehouse. A place that no one had called home, that I could claim for my own. I didn't have to lay down my tent to become a member of society. I merely had to pay for the property taxes, I guess. As the young woman by the fountain stood awkwardly pretending not to notice as I laid down a path to a small fenced area next to the rundown community center that no one ever stepped into, I felt a great sense of peace settle over me. I had spent time out in the woods, the backwoods, some might even say, and I had learned that all that nature crap was for the birds. Goodbye, Mr. Blue Jay. I hope you sing a beautiful song. Alone, without me. Get the heck out of here. This was the worst video ever.